stop following everyone, burn the books, and you get the privilege of picking up your next book that someone recommended to you once you've taken action and screwed up.
Nice.
Like you need to go extreme because you get stuck.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Millionaire Misfits podcast. This is episode 4 and 5, a two-parter. Our mission is to turn everyday misfits like us into millionaires like our guests, achieve financial freedom, options, and independence from the day job. In studio today, our guest is Kyle Reedstrom. He owns a brokerage here in Fargo for real estate sales, investment properties, does a lot of entrepreneurial ventures, and was absolutely inspiring to talk to. You guys are going to be in for a huge treat. Let's get into it. Dan, what can they expect?
So if you guys are just starting out and don't know where to start, need some information, need some motivation, whatever it is, this is going to be an awesome episode for you to listen to. Kyle he talks so much about actionable items and just so many good nuggets that you can take away from this and get started and just motivate yourself to go do that thing that you're wanting to do. So you guys are definitely going to want to listen to both parts of this one. Kyle's got a lot of good stuff about how to get started, how he got started, and stick around for part 2 and check that out as well, because he really gets into mindset stuff and how to motivate yourselves. So if you're trying to get started, this is the one for you. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Millionaire Misfit podcast. We're in the studio with Kyle Reedstrom, buddy of mine, go way back, and excited to have this interview. Future Hall of Famer, all-time great. The man, the myth, the legend. I'm doing some callbacks.
Kyle, we've heard a lot about you.
Yeah, the pressure's on.
You got a lot to live up to here.
Man, I like it. I like the expectations.
Yeah, man. So we both go way back, done some real estate together. You've listed a couple of my houses back in the day.
Yes.
You're just a beast out here. Husband, father, family man, first and foremost, investor, broker, entrepreneur, podcaster, author, influencer, basketball star.
Wow. Okay, expectations down.
Yeah.
So I can make layups and rebounds. That's about as far as basketball skill goes.
The first question, he's going to be like, I don't really know. Next question.
No, man, it's awesome to have you here. You're going to be providing a ton of great nuggets. I know you as someone who loves to give back, loves to help reinvest back into the real estate investing community, young guys getting after it, and just pouring what you've learned and what you've gained with your experience back into people. So I'm really excited to get into a lot of these nitty-gritty details. Here's some of your origin story and where you're at today, and a lot of good actionable tips for our listeners, our misfits out there like me and Dan, and how they can take the path that will eventually get them to millionaire status if that's what they want.
Love it.
So welcome here. Thank you for coming.
It's good to be here. I want to say quickly first too, Eric and I do go way back. What way back to us means is when we started our journey in real estate investing, I think of Eric as a running buddy. We were both figuring it out as we go. And if that's not a nugget for people listening, finding those people that are in a similar season that are going for it and identifying them, having eyes to see them. And then don't look at them as competition. Because if we would have done that, we wouldn't be sitting here. We thought way more times hey, how can this guy's going for it too? I'm trying to go for it. Let's connect. We've done business together. We've stayed in proximity and aware of what each other are doing. And I like to think helped each other way more than we've ever hurt each other. So it's find those running buddies and don't just be in tunnel vision. I have a tendency to do that, Eric. You just go into a hole and you're I'm just going to do it all.
Yeah.
It's that's not necessarily how people become millionaires. Isn't just by total shut the door and maybe coders. I don't know how, maybe that's how they do that, but
that's for some,
secrets,
but for extroverts like us, you definitely win more together than you do alone. And it's more fun.
Yes.
That's part of pouring back into the guys that come up after you too. And yeah, man. So we do go way back. Tell us a little bit about what got you started in that, what was the beginning point for you? What got you interested in pursuing, wealth and your own thing, real estate in particular, if you want?
Yeah. So my backstory involves engineering, which is crazy because if I have to look back on it, I think I went into engineering, which if any engineers are listening to this at their cubicles right now, frustrated with their jobs, they're going to be like, oh no, he's calling me out. But that was me. I was sitting at my engineering job, listening to Bigger Pockets all day long, maybe mixed with some ESPN radio. That's about it. But it was mostly Bigger Pockets. Frustrated, having the realization that I was in a W-2 job, which I think is applicable to many. I'm in a W-2 job that I don't see myself in long term. I'm not excited about this. I'm not excited about what I see in my boss that's been here for 15 years. Oh no, I'm terrified. Like, is this not what I just went to school for this? I'm
So
terrified. And so what I do, I was discovering, and then I realized, I think I went into engineering because I thought engineers make a lot of money. And I think some engineers do make a lot of money. And it was just an eye opener. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Money's good for the good it can do. But it just gave me awareness of like, if that's not my goals, if I'm not working to become that person, then what am I doing? I think I'm wasting my time. So that got me into discovery mode. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the start. And then the jump happened where I did rip the Band-Aid off. And I read a book called 6 Months to Six Figures. In that book, he has you set a date 6 months from like reading it. I did that. I set a date 6 months. I was like, okay, that's this date. Didn't hit that date exactly, but like it did push me out the fence to take action.
Wow.
That's like,
There's so much there. There's so much there. Like you go to college because like that's the blueprint, right? Like especially for
that's
guys
what
like
I was
us.
told was the blueprint from junior year. And I needed, because I was a dude that was, people around me thought Kyle kind of knows, he's sure of himself. He's always kind of been decided. So he should know what he's doing next. Secretly, I wish, and I want this for young people right now, for my kids, I want to challenge you to not know. I want to challenge you to stay into discovery mode for years. Like, don't have to have an answer. Those hardships or that realization took me into discovery and curiosity, but I feel like I should have shadowed more of what I thought was my next answer, or like I should have dug in more, or maybe I was just meant to just work through the valley.
This self-discovery is kind of like you have to go through it yourself. Like no one's going to give you the answers that you would come up with on your own, you know? And like, I'm frustrated looking back at my own like wasted time in my past, but like, that's the path that'll get you there. So if anyone listening has made 5 years of like wasted time and they're like bummed about it, like, well, tomorrow's a new day. Like try to start a different trajectory, because wherever you end up, if it's a good place, like those last 5 years will be just part of that big journey.
Oh, so true. Like I would say that to anybody listening right now that's frustrated, that's like, oh my gosh, I'm identifying with some of this. Understand, like I stayed after that realization, I stayed for 2 years.
dang.
And that wasn't because I was complacent. Like I wanted to be gone every day.
Wow.
But I knew that I had a calculated environment where I could be strategic and dude, I made so many fake spreadsheets of buying a 24-plex and like how I would raise the money and what is it? Does this even make sense? And had no idea what I was doing. I still have those spreadsheets.
But you're just taking the mental reps.
Yes,
Like,
I was taking reps. Life was in a place where I could start to make calculated decisions and strategy and then leap. You know, and some people have it where they get fired and they just have to make stuff happen, right? Some people might have that situation they're in right now where you could be game planning.
So
Use that time.
this is like, this is one thing that we've actually already talked about, like, or heard a lot, is like, you know, reading books and doing research and stuff like that, which I don't know that anybody can really argue that like that's not a good idea.
right. Yeah.
But I also know like there's got to be a lot of people out there, because I'm kind of like this, which I have no problem listening to audiobooks and stuff like that. But like this idea of sitting down and doing tons of research and doing tons of like reading and things like that. Is there another way, or like a different way to kind of go about educating yourself on this stuff without having to go pick up a book? Or is that like, and I'm just asking because I'm like, I could do it, but it's like, that's not the ideal way for me to learn. And we were just talking earlier, I'm like, especially in real estate, like there's not a good way to practice buying a house, flipping it and selling it.
That's
right?
good.
Other than the spreadsheet, like
Yeah.
in your mind.
Yeah. Like
in your mind.
that's great. Like running like fake scenarios and like practicing that stuff. But is there like another option out there to like kind of help somebody get into this, educate themselves without having to go pick up a book and do that?
Well, dude, I actually feel like I have 2 thoughts to that, Dan. And that would be, number one, I'm too squirrely to read a book. I mean, I'll read a book and I start daydreaming during the pages. I'm like, what am I doing here? One of my favorite quotes that I had a coach tell me was, education without implementation is just entertainment. And so I found that I was reading a lot of books for entertainment when I thought I was reading them to make my life better. So it's like, first take inventory. Are you just like, you might as well go watch a Netflix show if you're going to read a book and not implement anything from what you read. So that, for that reason, I started implementing I only read or listen to 10 pages or 10 minutes maximum per day because that felt safe.
Yeah.
So I'm not the guy that's going to read a chapter of a book and sit on a couch and read. That sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Even right now, I'm like, ugh. And you're missing everything. Like I know a guy that read 100 books in a year and I go, that ain't it. Cause I didn't see your life change 100 books worth of knowledge.
Right. How much can you retain one 100%. And then how much can you act on?
That's just an achiever's mentality. There's
well,
something
100
there.
books too. I mean, like talking about implementing, I mean,
you're busy reading.
Every single one of those books is telling you something different.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And so like if you take 10 minutes of a podcast and you just think about what they said, and like if you take the first 10 minutes of this podcast and you just implemented one thing, there's enough here for you to go. Not saying we just crush the world of podcasts.
Turn it off. Go think.
It's over. But have that mentality in the 10 pages of a book, man. Sometimes you read the foreword of a book and it's not the author, it's the other person. And that's where I discovered some masterminds that I want to be a part of. Because I met this guy at this event and I go, stop, what's that event? Looks like an awesome event. I'm going to go to that event.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to check out that event or I'm going to put it on my calendar. Right. It's like, that was not even part of the book, you know? So it's like, how are you implementing? And then the other thing that I do very commonly in that theme is I don't listen to or read anything that's outside of the theme of my current obsession. So I think you should get obsessed about something. When I was an engineer, I got obsessed about real estate after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Common theme.
Yep.
So I shouldn't go and listen to my favorite podcast about weightlifting that day. I shouldn't listen to the one about like, hey, how should you eat right? Because we have this society of like just shiny object syndrome and it's everywhere. Why not just like, okay, I can still do shiny object, but all the reels I want to listen to or follow right now, if it's not about real estate, I'm flipping. You know?
So or pairing your interest with what you're, I guess,
taking action towards like your goals.
Yeah, like your interests and your goals with the content that you're consuming.
Yeah.
And just optimizing the amount of time you're doing it, keeping it an attainable goal or a reachable goal.
Like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, like small nuggets, because then you're forced to take action. Like it could be as simple. We were chatting about like podcast setups and like podcasting in general. I've had moments where I did 3 weeks where all I did was watch YouTube videos on how people do podcasts. It's just like, that's because that's my current obsession. I shouldn't be trying to keep knocking out a few more pages of that book that I started out of principle. No, I should say, ditch that. I'm obsessed about this now. And then give myself that run and then try to take nuggets and take action.
Okay. So Kyle,
love that.
One thing that me and Eric had talked about, because Eric claims that he spent too long educating himself before doing deals. What would you say to people who say like, well, if I'm only doing 10 pages or 10 minutes at a time, like it's going to take me way longer to get educated before I feel comfortable to start doing deals? How do you know, and I'm not trying
Analysis
to like,
paralysis.
I'm not
real.
countering you. What I like what you're saying a lot, because I think that would work well for me.
Well, my answer's so harsh. That's why I was pausing. I think my answer is stop following everyone, burn the books, and you get the privilege of picking up your next book that someone recommended to you once you've taken action and screwed up.
Nice.
Like you need to like go extreme because you get stuck, and everybody's got a different mentality. Here's the thing. I know the guys that are from my background, my hometown, you know, I'm not going to I'll call them the contractor guy or the construction guy or the farm guy that doesn't read a book, doesn't want to, and he just takes massive action and he just does things. And guess what? He's farther along in his real estate investing journey than me. You could argue that, I've strategized and bought better investments, but he's bought them faster and at more volume, and he's made mistakes faster, and he's farther along than where I'm at.
Yeah.
So
he's like the Elon Musk version. He'll like blow up a rocket, but then like build 4 more or whatever.
Yes.
Dude, like I listened to Bigger Pockets religiously. The first 100, and then I was caught up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is all so good. Listen to them all again. I'm like, and then at the end, I'm like all caught up at like 220 or whatever, because it took me like another month or two. And I'm like, okay, I have seen the themes emerge. I understand the fundamentals, and everyone's saying like, read these books, read them, listen to these podcasts. Okay, I checked those out, and I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm not listening to a single like episode or reading another book until I buy my next deal.
There it is. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. And then like, it wasn't that long until I bought that fourplex that I was house hacking, and that was like off of Craigslist or whatever. But the point is you can spend, after you hit enough time like researching and educating yourself to where you feel like you could take action, like that's your like sign to go.
Shut it off.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough to get started.
Take it personally right now. If you are stuck in the safety of analysis and like consumption, that you're done after you listen to this. Like, shut up. Are we begging people to shut off our podcast?
After this?
Yes,
I mean, like,
yes, we are.
take our advice as soon as this ends. You know, finish your drive. You know, finish like the meal you're cooking right now, or what? Finish your run, but don't turn off the podcast.
Yeah.
But don't
also share it and
you're
like
done.
it.
This is the last podcast. And then you did awesome deals and then you came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much gold there. I mean, like you don't even have to have podcasts, books, or like your social media. You could go find someone else that's doing it, find out like, what do I got to do to attach myself to Kyle's hip? Like, how can I go add some value in return for me shadowing him? If I have ADHD, can't read a freaking book, listen to a whole podcast episode, no matter how good it is, like this one, like how do I just add value to Kyle and then in exchange, add that value first, and then maybe I can like watch him in action. That's me like basically getting training wheels with no risk, just a little time, and I don't have to read a book. But that was like one of my like hot takes for your question is like, if I can't handle getting through a book, or like we had one guest, we're like, how many real estate books have you read? He's like, I've read one book since high school or something like that. We're like, it's not the only way. Like there's a million different ways to get there.
Yes.
It's just believing that there's a path for you specifically to get there. And once you have that like in your mind, then it's just a matter of putting that piece of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
I do like though what you had said about 10 minutes, but don't just turn it off and then go play with your Lego set.
Yeah.
Like turn it off
Legos.
and then, well,
It's to take
if
the
you're
nugget,
a child
'cause,
like me,
if
like
you have,
think about it.
If you have the intention, like I believe another quote, but finding's meant for the seeker. If you come into that 10 minutes knowing like, I'm going to find something, it's in here. I don't know what it is. It might be really subtle. It's just crazy the things you'll find.
Yeah.
Like you'll find the weird, and it's not even applicable to what, it might be like applicable to your relationship, or it just sparks an idea off of something, but it's like you are going to take something from it. And, I love what you said, Eric. And I think I've heard you say this, and I know I've heard you offer the opportunity, but just going and serving voluntarily, like just jump in and do something with somebody that's doing what you want to do. What a great front row seat. What a great connection. Nobody says no to that. If somebody says, Eric, can I just come and help you on one of your flips for free? Yeah. And I know you've said like anybody want to get the kind of do the hustle. I'm looking for a couple people that want to rip out some flooring. It's like, dude, we all did that. I did that. I was so curious about it. I was jumping in on, I had a best friend's dad that was flipping a place in our hometown. I'm like, let's just go and paint the whole thing. It's like, okay, but then I get to ask questions and do that, A guy in my office, Mason, he's calling people. He runs into a guy that came to one of our real estate meetups. He's like, oh, you're ripping out some flooring and you're jackhammering on a basement in one of your rentals? I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, we need the ceiling height to be. He's like, can I come help you? It's like, yeah,
Nice.
sure. Why would you want to? I want to learn.
Yeah.
Like whatever it takes.
We
honestly.
literally had this conversation this morning.
Yeah, he was like, Eric, can I just like find you a deal and then like you pay me for the wholesale deal and then I can shadow you? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, or you could just give me the deal and then shadow me, because like that's worth like potentially $1 million skill. And he's like, but I want that $8,000 wholesale fee.
I did not say that.
I want that $10,000 wholesale fee.
What I had said was, if I could get the knowledge and some money, why wouldn't I?
And then what did I say?
You said, do you want to learn how to, or do you want the fish, or do you want to learn how to fish?
Drop.
He's like, I want
That's
both.
a great point though. Think of that. I know that in my life as an early investor, as an early real estate agent, as an early entrepreneur, I just wanted the fish sometimes. And really, I think I could have expedited my path if I'd have just spent time like sharpening the axe a little bit, or learning how, or like not necessarily in the analysis, right? But like I want the skill the most. Like I would make 0 commission on any deals for my first 10 if I could get to be awesome at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus the people that are like mentoring you during that time, they see you as someone who is mature enough to sacrifice in the short term. And that makes an incredible investor in the long term.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like if Dan's like, I want to work for you, I'll do it for free. I don't care. I just want longevity.
That could be the skill you learn
Right?
there.
Just
and it's
that,
the
yeah.
most valuable skill.
My neighbor, I go down there every once in a while for breakfast, and they're like, their daughter's going to school to be a doctor, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. What kind of doctor? And they're like, dermatologist. I'm like, good for her. You know, like that's a high paying doctor career. I'm like, what is she gonna do like in the meantime and stuff? And they're telling me about how she's taking a gap year to shadow. And I'm like, that is probably the best thing she could do.
Good.
Because yeah, sure, you burn a year where you make less or make nothing, but like, man, in the short run, it sucks. It's a sacrifice. It may be like it's uncomfortable out of your comfort zone. But if you learn how to be an exceptional dermatologist and how to maximize a private practice like net profit just in 1 year of watching someone who's done it for 20 years, like you are going to be light years ahead. So like, sure, your first year you would have been making more if you wouldn't have taken that gap year, but year 5, you're like double, triple where you would have been at.
So true. And think of the years you could burn doing it the wrong way or being stuck in a situation. I love the quote, like most men or most professionals, or it doesn't have to be men. Most people live a 28 year, they die at 28, but they just live to be 65 or 80 years old.
Yeah.
It's because they just kept repeating the same year over and over again.
That one hits hard.
That's
tough.
I was
because
like,
you get in rhythms. It's like, oh no. But if I would have shadowed, back to the engineering story, I wouldn't have necessarily learned how to be a good engineer. I would have seen the breadcrumb trails to know that this is not me. I might not. This might pivot my path a little bit. It might have raised some question marks earlier on. Then I wouldn't have experienced some of the lower pain that did take to make them.
That's so awesome. Yeah. So that quote where it's like you die at 28, but they bury you at like 70 or whatever, like that hits, and that wraps up your entire origin story. That's the first segment. Like you go to college, we do the blueprint, we do what we're supposed to do, and you're at your cubicle and you're like, shit, like this is 30. You're staring 30 years in the face, and you're like, not for me.
Well, that was when we were talking about our stuff. Like you had, because Eric had said, like I think I asked you, I'm like, how old were you when you quit your job and you started doing this stuff? And you said like 29 or 30 or something.
Yeah,
full time.
And when he said that, I was like, I got to be out of here by the time I'm 30. And like, just like as an arbitrary date or whatever. But I was like, that's what Eric did. I'm like,
I was
like, I got to make a move by the time I'm 30. And so,
dude, my mom, who's been such an encourager, like when I've taken different paths, taken different risks, she's always the one that has always been like, I'd bet on you, Yeah. And it's like the other voices have sometimes been like questioning and filled you with doubt, but she just, she's had like a 40-year career with Wells Fargo. Crazy. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And she's a manager, all that stuff. Well, they let her go. They're doing some different things. So like the severance thing, it's like she was like 6 months away from retiring. So it's actually kind of but it's still hard. And then I said the quote to her, I've said it to her before, that Colonel Sanders didn't start KFC till he was like 65. Yeah. And then his first business that actually hit happened when he was 60, That's and crazy. He had a train wreck of entrepreneurship before that, to get to the one recipe that made it all happen.
Recipe, secret recipe. So you run in spreadsheets at your desk, doing engineering for a couple of years, but the whole time in the back of your mind, you're like, this is not for me. Like, I want to like talk a little bit, like I want you to talk a little bit more about that mindset.
I want you to talk about it, Eric.
I talk too much. But like that mindset where like you have this expectation and it's not what you thought it was. And like reality hits you. And it's a certain type of person that is like, this is not for me. And they know it. And then it's another more rare type of person that will take action on it, because some people will just sit in a job they hate for a long time, which we want to discourage and give tools to get out of that. But, like that is like, it's a trap of convenience and comfort and low risk. So like I want to talk about like your mindset when you were there and like the stuff that you were kind of like how you got to the point where to make that leap.
I'd also, if you're okay with it, I'd kind of like rough ages too of when this all happened. That'd be sweet. Yeah, so I end up, this was happening when I was 26. A realization happened when I was 24 in my first job, and then I stuck it out till I was 26. So I got into real estate full time about 10 years ago coming up. So that mindset it's crazy because when you said that, when you were explaining that, it was a lot of honesty that was taking place that I was able to not say out loud.
because I was scared to tell any of my engineering buddies, like, I don't think I'm going to do this. Cause everybody, there was not, nobody was really excited about what they're doing. So everybody's kind of feeling it. Nobody was talking about it. And then some of them actually were like, this is like, they were Mr. Engineer or Mrs. Engineer. And they were like, oh no, like I'm not, and I do not want to be that. But I did journal it a lot. So I would say that like that was a safety net for me. I wrote down a lot of my thoughts. There's been certain periods of my life where journaling's been very applicable. I don't know if anybody listening has that practice. I find there's a ton of value for people that are squirrely, for people that have ADHD, for entrepreneurial extroverts to just give yourself 15 minutes and just write out some thoughts and even give yourself a couple question prompts. ChatGPT has awesome journal question prompts, and then see what comes out, because in that moment, it just allowed me to actually have some integrity and be honest. In social settings, I was acting like Mr. Engineer, like, oh yeah, I got, and with my family, I was acting like, yeah, everything's good. How's the new job? Oh yeah, it's great. We're doing this project, oh, tell me more about that. I didn't want to talk about that project. There was a lot of like integrity issues that were happening, but in the safe space of my quiet time, I was able to be honest. And, then it was like guilt comes in, shame, regret. I feel like I'm wasting time. I had this prideful ego that said that I had to be a high achiever, that I was a people pleaser. I needed people to know that I was successful. And what if they saw the real me? I was going to quit this. So it was like, oh man. And then what happened was I started reading books after Rich Dad Poor Dad, and some of these books had really encouraged mentorship. And I was like, I had a coach. I was in sports. I always had coaches. It's the first time, like I had teachers in college. I even had kind of like advisor, like coaches in college. I'm in professional world. It's funny how when you get to the professional world, all of that goes, it's like, but when athletes get to the professional world, they get more coaches. Like these athletes, like they start in high school with one coach. College, they have like a crop of coaches. You get to be a professional athlete. You have a whole barrage. You have sleep coaches. You have diet coaches. You have coaches that are like getting you the right shoes to wear.
Yeah.
Like you have a coach for every aspect of your life because you're at the highest level. Wait, I get to the professional world, and then I have no coaches. Then my manager is definitely not coaching me. He's micromanaging me.
Yeah. Yes.
So like it was the opposite. I'm like, okay, so what did I do? I went and got a coach. I started asking people that I did aspire to be like, hey, would you just give me time, or I'd add value? A lot of people were willing to give in that moment. I think of an early coach that I had. Her name was Heather. I just wanted to go through the book. I just want to do a book study with this person that was 20 years ahead of me. And I asked her, would you ever just want to go through this book? She had this awesome growth mindset. And she said yes, because she's like, I bet you I can learn from that book too. And I'll go through it. Dude, she was a major connector, connected me with tons of people. And so like all of this, I started to get out of my own way by having someone kind of show me through the trees a little bit. And that started to let me have more of my integrity shine through, be more honest with my situation, to the point where after a year of that, I got to the point where I was like, I know what I'm doing. And I felt freedom in it. I was like, I know I'm not going to do this anymore. Now I'm energized. Now I got to pick out what I'm going to do. And then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah. There's two things that I actually want to loop back on. So the first one is the journaling. I've heard this from a lot of people. I've thought about doing it. I've never really pulled the trigger and like started doing it. And here's why. And this is where my question is like, so I've thought about doing it, but I'm like, I'm going to write it down and I'm just going to forget about it. Like I'm never going to look back at this. I'm never going to do anything with it. Like what's the point? So for people to journal, because I see Eric do it too. Like you do this sometimes too. Like you'll write down thoughts or you'll write down stuff, whatever. It doesn't have to be, at the end of every day, I sit down at my little desk with my mirror and lights and like, write down whatever. But for you or you, Eric, I mean, is there like, do you ever go back, or is there something intentional that would make that worth it to do that? And honestly, this is just me asking, but
yeah,
or is it just to help you get the thoughts out?
Yeah. So I would say there is a need, if you are in a discovery mode, to get thoughts out of your brain. And if your goal is not to like retain anything, if your goal is just like, here's one thing I love is the obstacle is the way. So the fact that I hate journaling is why I needed to do it. So the fact that you might not be, it doesn't come easy to you, or that you would never want to, and that might be exactly why you should journal from here on out. And and here's the other thing I do very commonly. I don't put an infinite date on things. I do things, everything in business we do for 90 days at a time, and then we switch everything up if we need to. Sometimes we keep the good things. I like to do journaling for like 20 days, or like something for like a sprint, and just like test it, and you can do anything for 10 days. Like if I said journal for 10 days, okay, well then you have enough to like give yourself an opportunity, right? Yeah. But like, I also don't know what to write. So like in that moment, I love the simple journal prompts of like, what was your high and what was your low? Like, that's just great because it gives me gratitude for the high. And then I definitely get some venting out. I'm like, dude, this sucked. There's certain periods of time, right? Like, I think that's a biteable chunk, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But then it did spark me into like, now my journaling practice is like, you'll commonly see me running around with a yellow legal pad. And there's a John Maxwell quote. God, this one I don't have logged in, but it was like, it was something to the extent of, ideas are like a slippery fish, and if you don't stab them, they will go away forever. So like, you have to capture those things. You feel prompts throughout the day as an entrepreneur. You have to capture them. You have to put them in your calendar and then circle back to them, or you got to write them down just as you heard them and then revisit. Or even if you just wrote it down, you can move on and move quickly. And if you just let everything be noise, you just miss these like big breakthroughs.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in a higher power. I think there's constantly things being put in front of us that we're just in the world's messy and distracting for a reason.
Definitely.
That if you don't have a practice to grab things, you're missing out on your breakthroughs.
That's so good, dude.
I like that.
That's the kind of reminds me of what you were saying earlier with like the podcast stuff. Like when you're listening to a podcast, like you don't have to just listen to it. You don't have to be a completionist. You could stop a podcast dead in the middle after hearing Kyle's advice and just go take action on it.
Listen to that. Like the fact, like any achievers listening that think you have to finish the book from 1 to page 302, kill that lie in your head right after Eric said that.
Yeah.
Because
I struggle with that a ton too.
Not finishing books can be the healthiest thing that you ever do, because you found what you were looking for and you moved. That's what that tells me if you didn't finish a book, or you found something enough for you to stop and go. It tells me you took action. If you got a bunch of flagged pages in a book and there's 7 of them sitting on your desk, I always used to think of that as a shameful thing. You're not a finisher. Well, not all of us have that. We might need people to finish the ideas, but we got to stay in our genius of like, I went and discovered this next thing that's going to impact our business.
Right. Yeah. Like what's better is it better to finish the book and then like vaguely remember that thing that inspired you to take action? Or you're in page 27 mid chapter and you're like, holy crap. And you set it down, go do it and find a deal.
That's really funny because in one of the past episodes, I was telling Eric and our guests that I was reading Good to Great, and I was listening to the audiobook, but I had the physical copy.
Yep.
And as I was listening to it, whenever I would like hear something that really resonated with me, I would put a little tab on it. And so the book had like all these tabs sticking out of it. And while I was in the middle of doing that is when I quit my job and came and worked for Eric, and I still haven't finished that book.
So, look at that prime example. It works. It can work.
I still want to, but yeah.
But to Kyle's point, it's all about like capturing that like lightning in a bottle kind of is what you're alluding to, right? Like you have that inspiration, you have that like little moment of genius and
that's the most common prompt I feel when I'm like self-discovering or in the pages of book. It's something that it's inspiring me to do that's like in a different category, but it's just given me the faith or given me the motivation in that moment to like go, or like something pops up in your mind because of something you read. Like that's how your brain works. And if you just have the mentality of powering through this chapter and ignoring these prompts, like build the muscle of paying attention to the prompts in your life as an entrepreneur, anybody, even with like kids or anything like that. It's like, man, we think that we have it all figured out sometimes. And really the clues to, pivoting and being dynamic with how you're doing things is right in front of you.
Yeah.
I think humans are the 2 ways we gain any sort of wisdom are from screwing up, learning from our mistakes.
Hell yeah.
Or we're all a bunch of misfits, right?
Like, that's like the most common way, but it's like you have to go through pain to do that. The less painful way is in the pages of books are superpowers and
Mhm.
self-discovery that you don't have to have maybe the pain, and like it's right there for you. So like this is, again, I do this a lot on like content that I do, or when I'm talking to anybody, I give prompt like, are you reading? Like, what book are you reading right now? If you don't have a good answer to that, like, get an answer to
Good
it
to great.
right
No,
now.
I'm
There you go.
kidding.
That counts because you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, so that's awesome, and like I said, it's something that I've always thought about doing. I wanted to try, but no, this is super motivational stuff. The coach,
Mm.
having a coach, having a mentor, things like that. How does one, you kind of touched on how you found it, but like for somebody who's just starting out and wants that, how do you go about finding somebody to mentor you or to coach you? If, like, let's say that you don't have a lot of contacts in the industry you're trying to get in. Let's say there's somebody working at a signage company that wants to get into real estate, but doesn't have a lot of real estate contacts.
Yeah.
How does that person go about finding a mentor or a coach?
Yes. So
Is that does that count as actionable?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the best answers you could ever have, and I'm going to tell you how not to do it. So,
Okay.
well, what I wanted to say about that is I want to tell a story. Short-term rentals. We're familiar with this. Airbnb.
We've dabbled.
Yes. One of the craziest
heard of 'em.
discoveries was in our bottleneck in our business for managing short-term rentals and owning short-term rentals. Well, more on the management business side was finding cleaners. Short-term rentals book out 5 to 10 times a month, and they got to be cleaned and they got to be reset. And we do same-day turnovers. So we're like cranking those out. We said, we need to find more cleaners. We need to get more capacity. We're taking on more units. So what did we do? We went looking for cleaners. We went talking to cleaning companies. Ended up being the worst thing we could have done. The best cleaners we've ever had hired and brought onto our crew and that work with us now were not cleaners. They were college kids. They were part-time workers. They were entrepreneurs. They're people that own an ice cream shop that wanted extra income. They had different mentality, but they could reset a place and clean things generally. Right? We could teach the skill, and we could make them do, or like send them down the path that would to go. So my whole point in telling that story was it was a surprise to us. My favorite surprise in coaching is I've had the best coaches that aren't professional coaches. So like I would say sometimes it's applicable if you're looking for a coach for something to go and find the guru online or find the website that's all professional and has the 90-day program sometimes. But most commonly, you're going to find someone that's not actually a coach and you're going to ask them to coach you. Right? You're going to say, hey, I see you doing something. I've even had coaches that are at the same level or less level than me that I just need different perspective from. And most of coaching is accountability. It doesn't take a skill to hold someone accountable. Any coach that I've had a really good relationship with, I've essentially laid out the framework with how I want to be coached. And then I'm like paying them to really hold me accountable and then also add insight and poke me on my blind spots. So to answer your question is, if you're thinking about getting into real estate, you can throw a rock and hit somebody that's doing something in real estate. And if you have the arrogance or pride thinking that you can't learn something from them, I've gone through a lot of coaches. You're not married. This is a season. I like to put a date on things. I think any good business has a good exit plan. So for you to have a period of time, I do that with a lot of coaches. Hey, for the next 90 days, I'd like to zone in on this rather than, cause I've gone a year or two with the same coach. And then guess what? We're humans. Like we get comfortable. We start talking about stuff off topic, not saying it's not valuable, but the goal kind of left. So it's like, how can we really zone in if we're going to do this relationship? And then outside of that, we can go from there.
Is it mostly networking then? Like you just kind of reach out to somebody like when you find them then?
Yeah, dude. So the answer is yes. The answer is I've reached out to authors of books that I've never met before. And I've said, hey, what do you got for me? I've definitely called on people that I meet at groups. I definitely pay attention online to what people are up to. And if there's like a specific, like financial coaching, I think is so important. Financial education, we all agree is so important. There's some people that are really good with finances and they're not coaches, but they just have good rhythms and things like that. They're disciplined. I want to learn that, So like, who do you know? Like who's someone that you can pick out? How do you find that stuff out? You ask great questions. You ask people that who they know. Hey, that person seems like they talked a lot about the stock market, or something like that. So you just I think you have to, my whole point in telling that story is I think people think only certain people are coaches. There's like, they only have eyes for like, you're a coach. Everybody in this room has a way they could add value to someone through intentionality, like in a coaching relationship. Coaching's maybe the wrong word even. It's like, it's really just accountability buddies. It's partnership. It's companionship. And then it's a similar goal
Mm-hmm.
and a time frame and get it done. You know,
Yeah.
I love book studies. It's like a group coaching session. It's like we're all here. We're going to read the same content. We're going to gain value from each other. Here's the goal, right? We do that a lot at our office. It's like we're going to have a takeaway from this, you know, and then there's going to be advice that happens along the way.
Yeah.
Just that routine accountability too. Like every single week, you know, you're going to be around your buddies talking money. So like in the back of your mind all week, you're thinking about it a little bit, or you're prepping or whatever. So it's just kind of not tricking yourself into always being like, you know, like keeping it top of mind, but like I always just put myself in positions where like I'm forced to follow through on my word or something, like commit to something.
Yes.
And now I just have to do it. And it makes me better. And it's what I wanted to do, but I'm like avoiding it because it's like hard or something. But I'm like, well, I'm just going to like openly say on Facebook, I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking for a fixer upper. Now, like, well, now I have to, you know, I can't backtrack because that's worse than anything. But yeah. Okay. So you eventually left your engineering job.
Yes.
And real estate is the way. And if anyone disagrees, they can fight me on it. But me and you agree, real estate. So you got into agency and brokerage first, or were you investor first?
Well, no, actually I should say this. One of my strategic moves in engineering was I had the banks like an engineering salary and they like seeing that. So I opened up 2 lines of credit while I was an engineer because they said, oh yeah, we like your income. Show us a couple of pay stubs. And it wasn't like I was making a lot of money. They just like the stability. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had some like extra access to cash.
Smart.
Don't take that as real estate advice, investing advice. High interest lines of credit maybe weren't the best, but at that time I was like, I needed more firepower.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did strategically make the move from Bismarck to Fargo. And by doing that, I did that move because I bought 2 fourplexes.
Oh, okay.
Which was my first, like I had bought the house I lived in college. So I did have one, but then I came back and I did that big investment. I was like, oh, that was a scary moment. That was scary. I overpaid for them. I mean, the whole story is kind of crazy. But then after that, like I was doing a house hack, I was living in one, flipping them. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm going to make this jump. So that actually happened. April 20th, 2015 is when I made the official jump.
Damn.
Wow. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you like, random question, but if you had to pick real estate investing or owning a brokerage, which would you pick? They're different. They're very different.
I would pick the brokerage.
Would.
You know why? Because it's cash generator and cash equals I can buy more real estate.
That's a good
And
answer.
the thing that's real estate is why, you know, flipping houses, it's a cash generator that helps you buy more real estate.
Right.
So like I really am passionate about helping people raise their income, at their active income. Cause like I'm a big passive income guy, but in order to have really good passive income, you have to raise your ceiling on your active.
Mhm.
What can you do? What value do you have where you can go create capital really quickly? Because guess what you get to do if you have the right mindset? You can deploy that capital in awesome ways.
Buy more real estate.
Yes. Yes.
It's all about buying more real estate, Max.
Yes.
Broken the fourth wall there. That's awesome.
So
I mean, that's a good answer.
that would be my answer. And that is actually, I think, where a lot of people get stuck. I've networked with so many people, and it's so many people that like, oh, I want to get into real estate. Like that's a common conversation I have. And then we get to the nuts and bolts. And what does it take to get into a real estate investment, Eric? It takes, you know, the banks want, well, we're like 25% down now.
These days, yeah.
You got to be creative. I have a lot of people love the 0% down content, all this stuff. I know real estate investors that are really high level that are doing that stuff. I've done it a few times, but it's like, that comes with experience. Most commonly, people are getting their first investment by putting some down payment and get some traditional financing.
Yeah.
How do you get down payment? You got to make money.
Got to be bankable.
Yes.
And then we put 55 grand down on our next investment. That was our first, like, we're real estate investors. I bought this fourplex in Moorhead for $220. It was 75% loan to value. It was just a banker's dream, right?
Yes.
2 people making $50K a year who just happened to save up, scrapped and ate oatmeal and ramen all day, every day, and didn't do anything fun. And
Yes.
like, I was willing to, cause I was like desperate to like build, you know, and I'm like, I need to build. I'm like drinking the real estate Kool-Aid.
Yes.
But that was the only time I saved up a bunch and then put 25% down, because I realized there's a better way for me personally. I wasn't going to be a pharmacist making 100, 150 a year. Wasn't going to do a sales job because I wasn't confident in my ability to like get there. You know, I'm like, I've hit my ceiling. I have a psychology degree. I have a job as a project manager that I hate. And me and my wife are like, we're putting away $5,000 a month in savings, but we're living off of ramen in a little 700 square foot apartment. So not ideal, but that's delay of gratification. That's sacrifice in the short term. And I mean, that works.
We just did a social media post that talked about like real estate's not necessarily like a get rich quick scheme, but it's about like, it will help you build the life that you want in the long run. But yeah, you know, you might have to get creative with some financing or house hack for a couple of years. If
you don't have the high income, but like to your point, like you deal with your brokerage with a lot of high income earners who are looking to place like discretionary money or even like in the middle of the road. But like if you have a lot of income and you're meeting your basic needs of like 100 or 60 to 100 grand a year, whatever your family takes, and you're making 200-300K a year, you have a lot of cash to put towards investments, you know? So like that's a good recipe. Like make a ton of money, but if you can't make a ton of money, then you have to go develop skills that will allow you to. And like that helps a lot.
And I mean, everybody loves the podcast where we sit here and talk about how we got real estate deals with zero money out of our pocket. It's like,
that's the sexy deal. That's a sexy topic.
I think those can come, but like you don't, in my experience, those deals have come by me. They've kind of come in proximity to me doing more traditional deals. And so like I haven't necessarily sought those out. Like those are like the road sign you pass every now and then. And it's like, you can say yes or no. It's like, man, I think that's a hard business. That's a discouraging business if you're getting into like just trying to find the creative deals. I love the hustle of how do I go DoorDash? How do I go drive Uber? How do I create extra income in hustling, especially if you're young, and raise my income ceiling, put more money away, start the snowball effect. Like you just said, it's the same way I got into it. I went, and again, one of the ways I created income or capital was I got those lines of credit from Wells Fargo, 9% interest or like 11% interest or something. Like I was not planning on using those in a bad way. It could have been really, really irresponsible with those funds, but I knew like that I had 20,000 saved up. That gave me another 35. I needed to stack some more on top of that, and I could get into a fourplex. Boom. Okay. Now my first goal is to self-manage it, cut expenses, and pay those lines off. And the 2 years in after I did that, I was like, look, it wasn't stupid. You know, like I didn't sink this, you know, I still overpaid for those at the time, but like I got into them. And I started earning that sweat equity and learning the hard way, you know, and that's like, there's some definite misfit stories along those lines.
We'll circle back to that.
Whatever it takes to get that snowball started. Like that's the huge, because the snowball implies you have that long-term goal and that long-term vision, just that you want to start, do whatever it takes. Like you said, like DoorDash or drive an Uber, like whatever it takes to get from 0 to 1. And then once you've gotten that momentum, then you're like, okay, I don't need to do that anymore. But like while I was doing that, I was listening to podcasts, and all my Uber guests were listening to my podcast too, because I made them or whatever, you know. But like getting that first deal is so much momentum, even if it's 3% down, which could be like 10, 15 grand. Like you can save that through hustle. And then you get that first deal. That's confidence. And then a little bit of cash flow, a little bit of debt reduction. Maybe it's another year or two before you get your next one. But then you do eventually get your next one. And then maybe it's only a year until you're next, and then 6 months, you know, like, so it can start like eventually there is a scenario, which I'm sure like you probably had a spreadsheet at work that like detailed this out, but like your real estate holdings could be buying you another house every month for the rest of your life. Once you get to a certain snowball growth point.
And give yourself that opportunity to dream about that, put it on paper, have the fun. But then get back. Get in your journal. But then like you said sexy deals out there, like the shiny object deals. We always joke in my house that Haley's the better real estate investor, my wife. Why? Because what did Haley do? She did the most boring real estate investment you can ever do. And she is a real estate investor. She moved back when we were dating. She bought a twin home for $175,000. And twin homes in Fargo, if you don't know, like connected house, just, you know, split level, 3-bed, 2-bath. It was just vanilla. They all look the same. Cookie cutter. Nobody gets excited about buying a cookie cutter house.
Suck.
That's what you have. That's what Dan has.
I live in one right now.
But that was her first house. She decided to buy 3% down instead of rent. She lived in it, moved out of it, And now she's rented that. Well, guess what happened? Time took its place. She did that in 2017. Turns out when she bought that, they were renting at like $1,200 a month. It's like, these don't make any sense. People that are buying these investments.